Hi, welcome to Ms. Cooper's art class. Today I'm having some fun with washable markers, and I'm just going to show you 5 ways you can kind of work with them if you're just doodling or trying to get over artist's block. The ones I have are just kind of the big fat ones. I don't have any of the super tips, but I do have a couple of the nice colors. So what I'm doing here is I'm just adding some water to my lines with a paintbrush. So first I'm just kind of drawing these blobs because this is kind of my go-to when I'm doodling. And then I'll grab a wet paintbrush and add a little bit of water. This is something that you could use in your actual artworks too if you ever wanted to. I had a teacher in high school who had me just kind of draw my hands and then add water to the lines to make it look more realistic. It was pretty cool. So that's just something to think about. But it can take your regular doodles and just kind of make them look a little more interesting, a little more 3D, and it doesn't even curl your paper that much because you're not adding a whole lot of water. So that's one kind of first thing you could try. You can also blend the markers by putting 2 colors right next to each other and then adding a little bit of water. I chose 2 colors that are pretty similar already, so that helps, but you can make some surprising blends, so just try them out. They can be really cool to work with, and then you get really intense colors. The next one I'll try is something where I'm working with dots in stippling or pointillism. If you want to see some basics about that, I have another video and I'll just kind of link it here in the video. Now I'm spacing out my dots really carefully with this green marker because I want to let the white space show in this kind of smooshed sphere that I'm drawing, but then I'm darkening them towards the edge. And I'm adding a little bit of a blue marker just to kind of make it a little more interesting and to jazz up this little doodle. Now something you could try that I don't do here is you could add a little bit of water with the paintbrush and kind of blend it and use the dots as a good way to lay down color. But I don't do that here because I really do like the texture of the dots, and then if it ever didn't blend well, it's already done in an intentional way. So a third way you could work with it is you could do crosshatching. It's where you're drawing just with lines instead. So I'm, again, doing a sphere, but I didn't trace a circle, so it's a little smushed, but we're going to roll with it. And I'm adding some yellow marker, and I'm being not super careful about my line direction, but I am leaving some white space for a little highlight for my sphere. But I'm doing a lot of yellow because I know I'm going to go back a little more sparingly with my other colors. Now on this one I'm going to blend some of it together to show you what that could look like, so I'm not being too careful. The red, orange, and yellow blend really well, but I'm adding some purple to show you what happens when you do cross-hatching, because you end up with some cool blending, but it has a little bit of a texture when you have a really different color in there like purple that kind of tends to stand out against the other colors a little bit. So here I am going in with my wet paintbrush and they're all blending together. It's looking kind of brown, but that's pretty natural, and this can kind of make any of your sketches look a little more realistic. Sometimes I do this if I'm kind of sketching out in public and I kind of want to water it down later, so I just kind of cross-hatch first and then I add water to make my scene look cool. So the fourth way you could work with markers is something called outlined lines that I'm doing here. I got the idea from a Peter Draws video. If you ever check out his channel, he's very cool. He's kind of good for doodling and getting over artist's block. But he outlined some lines he drew with marker. I'm kind of going for blobs because I just kind of tend to doodle these kind of paisley teardrop shaped blobs, and I did them in some matching colors. And now I'm going in with a fine point felt tip pen. This is just an Amazon Basics one, and outlining them. As I started outlining, I realized it could look kind of cool if I broke up my outline a little bit and did more dashed lines. So I changed to doing that with some of the top blobs here. After I was done outlining them, I started adding some other textures kind of to the middle, some dots, some other lines to make them look a little more like liquidy droplets. And this ended up being one of my favorite ways to work with markers. So I do this a lot when I'm not really sure what to do. They can make a nice background of an artwork as well. There's a lot you could do with this idea. The last one I'll show you here, the fifth way, is kind of working with it like watercolor. I'm laying down a couple skin tones, and then what you do is you wet them with a paintbrush and use that brush to move them somewhere else. So I'm starting with one of those basic kind of white flesh tone markers, but I'm adding some tiger orange kind of once I've built it up, because the tiger orange tends to blend in a little bit better than the regular orange, so that's what I have laid down, and I'm adding a little more. My paper isn't really curling because I'm not adding a lot of water. And this is something good to do if you maybe don't have watercolors on hand or you're not really wanting to mix some of those intense colors that day. Here you can see me adding a little bit of pink. It's kind of what blush or like a lip color could look like, and I'm just kind of blending it all together so you get an idea. Sometimes it's fun to play with the intense colors too and just do things like leaves and petals and things in nature. The key here is to have fun with it, overcome artist's block, and figure out how you can use washable markers in your regular art. My two favorites are adding water to lines and outlining lines, but I'd love for you to share your favorite down below in the comments if you want. Try them all. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If this was helpful, please give it a like or subscribe for more. Thank you. Happy doodling.